Welcome to Just Now Possible with Teresa Torres.
I am Steve. I'm a product manager in Perk, and I look after our users' post-travel booking experience. So if they already have some travel booked, they want to change, cancel, modify their plans, or they need to get in contact with customer care. So all of these entry points into customer care, as well as just general operational efficiency of the business from a product side. Pass you over to Gabby.
Yeah. So I'm Gabby. I'm a senior engineer manager at Perk. I would say I'm the engineering counterpart of Steve. We work together shaping the roadmap of 3 teams. I'm mainly focused on, how we allocate and the engineers and how do we shape our delivery for the post-booking experience and how our customers get to support, reach out to support. And my main focus this year was to automate things and see how we can reduce some of the manual work and a bit of also using AI for, not for the hype, but to see how we can solve real problems with AI.
Perfect.
I'm Philipe, senior software engineer at Perk. Yeah, and I've been working with AI for almost 2 years. I've been working in a team that was basically before exploring how could we use AI and leverage AI. And now I'm working with Gabby and Steven, I think almost a year. So trying to move things from idea to production using AI mostly. But again, not just for the hype, but as really trying to fix some real problem in production.
Excellent. Okay, and tell me a little bit about what does Perk do?
So Perk's mission is to basically remove all of the shadow work that people do in their job, right? So I'm a product manager. We're here with 2 engineers, but also sometimes we have to travel. Sometimes we have to submit expenses or get approval for expenses. All of this kind of work that is not actually our job is what we want to remove from people.
Yeah, I saw this term on your website, the shadow work term. I really like that. Like, how do we get people focused on their actual work and not all the little tedious stuff we have to do to support the way our company gets things done?
Yeah, and there's a lot of it. So I think we calculated somewhere in the trillions of dollars. Well, 7 hours per week per person is lost to doing this kind of menial tasks that are not your core job.
Oh, wow. And this actually feels like exactly the type of area that AI should be helping with.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me about the products that we're going to talk through today.
We mainly work in the travel side of Perk. And if you imagine an online travel agency for business travelers. So some of our guests, the kind of value proposition for our travelers is that they don't have to pay, right? They don't have to pay with their own credit card and then submit an expense. Their company has an account with Perk, and the traveler can just book their hotel and it's paid by us. Everything is ready for when they arrive and check in. And for some of our hotel inventory, we pay with a virtual credit card. Some of it we have a credit line, some with a virtual credit card. And it happens in a few cases that the hotel don't take note of the virtual credit card that we send them. So when the traveler arrives to the hotel, the room is not paid, completely unexpected for them. So they have a couple of options there. They could try to get in contact with our customer care and try to fix it. Can we send the virtual credit card again, send the authorization form again? They could pay it with their own credit card, which kind of goes against our value proposition. Then they would have to expense it and all of this, or in the really worst case scenario, because it's not paid, the room could have even been let go by the hotel. So it's literally one of the most painful experiences. For our travelers, imagine that you arrive across Atlantic flight in the middle of the night, get to your hotel after 14 hours and the room's gone.
Yeah, I can imagine exactly how horrible this is. Okay, so let me make sure I understand the context. So your customers are businesses, and your end users are their employees that need to travel. And the value proposition is instead of you paying on your credit card and having to submit an expense report and wait to get reimbursed, you'll book through Perk. We'll pay for the hotel. You just show up and you've got a hotel. But there's instances where when they book, the virtual credit card doesn't get passed through appropriately to the hotel, or the hotel doesn't know there's a... Tell me a little bit about what's going wrong in those instances.
We would really like to know that as well, but because we try a lot of things to make it known. So we use all different kind of method. There's quite a few products out there that are specifically for this use case of passing virtual credit cards to hotels that PCI comply and all of this. But this is mainly at this point down to human error. Someone missed an email, someone didn't charge the card. So it's very sporadic. It does not happen very often. Usually the process works very well. It's just that it's one of those things that we consider to be so painful that we don't want to leave anyone behind, basically.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. So it's not that this is a common challenge. It's that it does happen. And when it does, it can be pretty catastrophic, might be too strong of a word, but pretty devastating for the traveler that's exhausted and just wants a bed.
Yeah, it can be really catastrophic. To solve this, we came up with a huge army of people who we will start to call to the hotels. So we can notice from our data that, okay, the traveler is going to check in less than 48 hours. The virtual credit card still doesn't have any charge on it. Let's call the hotel and ask them to do it. Get on the phone with someone and say, have you received it? Can you please charge it now? And have a conversation with those.
Give me a sense of the volume. How many people, how many phone calls? What are we talking about?
We were making around into the 10,000 calls per week. That doesn't mean there will be like 10,000 unsuccessful charges because we're very proactive with this, but somewhere around there.
Okay. So a big, even though the problem doesn't occur that often, to prevent the problem, you have to make a lot of proactive phone calls.
Yeah. The thing is that it's difficult to pinpoint which is the hotel or which is the BCC that's going to fail. So we gotta say that we have to call everybody, like every hotel, to make sure that the charges are made, right?
Okay. Yeah. And then how did you determine this was a problem AI could help address? Tell me about the early days of exploring this.
So I think we started with AI and voice. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, I remember seeing a presentation that Google did showing like how they build an AI assistant to book appointments. I think this was like 7 or 6 years ago. And I saw that and was amazing. Like, it was a big leap from what we had before. And about 2 years ago, we started, when ChatGPT came out and OpenAI exploded, we started experimenting with OpenAI, connecting with 11 Labs and Twilio, and start understanding, okay, we have an AI that can create text, we can convert text to speech, things like that, and did a few proof of concepts, but just for fun. And I remember like the first thing we did is to book add breakfast to like a hotel reservation. Like trying to see, okay, could we do this? We didn't know if it was a problem or not. It was just like an experiment. Yeah, like 2 years have passed from that, and we were working with Steve on like planning. And one of the problems we needed to tackle this year was specifically these prepayments with circulated cards. And I guess that's when we understood that how it was being solved through calls from our customer care agents, calling every hotel. That's how we understood, this technology that evolved in 2 years, because from 2 years ago till now, all the tools have evolved. The AI models change, how they can reason now, the speed, latency, etc. change. And we thought, okay, now is the moment where we can use this for a real problem.
I love this. Okay, so it sounds like a couple years ago, you already did a little bit of experimenting with voice just as a fun thing to explore. So then this year, when this problem came back up, you already had some knowledge like, hey, there's technology here that maybe we could throw at this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like connecting the dots in your mind, right? That we've played with this technology, and now we have actual problem that pretty much the only way it can be solved is by this.
Tell me about that first little prototype or experiment that you ran. Tell me a little bit more of the story around that.
So it was fun because with Steve, we were helping on an AI workshop that was given to non-technical people on the company. So we were helping organize, and like we sit down there and be one extra team on that workshop because it ended up in a hackathon. So when we thought about, okay, what can we do for this hackathon? We said, oh, let's try out this project, see if we can make it work right now. And yeah, we started prototyping. We used make.com to try to build something fast and connect the different tools that we had. And yeah, I think in a week or a week and a half, we had a working thing that we'll call hotels. I think the harder part was kind of iterate on the prompt because, yeah, the first version was first we call ourselves and try to like make an act of us being the hotel agent responding to the AI, seeing how testing it. But it's very different when you know that it's an AI and you try to respond so you don't take it out of context than when it happens in real life. So when we switched to the real calls, we learned a lot from that.
Yeah, I love though that this started almost as like you were just playing with the technology to see what can we do with this. And then fast forward in time, you've got a real customer problem. You've got a little bit of experience with it. Give me a sense of, you now have a real customer problem. You've played a little bit with the technology. How did you determine this would be good enough to actually solve this customer problem? Was there some prototyping in the context of the customer problem? What did that look like?
I think our biggest concern was, or like the biggest thing that we really wanted to validate before like scaling or whatever was like, will people even talk to this AI? Yeah. Because I think as well, when you're actually working with it and you know it's an AI, it sounds very robotic and AI to you. And I think we lost context of almost how good it was sounding. Yeah. So yeah, our main validation that we wanted to do was like, will people actually talk to this? So one of the main things we wanted to do was make sure the voice was the most realistic one. And I think that was like maybe a naive way of thinking. Like we didn't really think about the latency or the prompting or what would the workflow be. We were like, the voice has to be good. It has to be a convincing voice. Yeah. Yeah, we like Gabby said, we were calling each other many times before we call an actual hotel. And the first time we call an actual hotel was still within our little make.com workflow. It was Gabby and I sitting in a tiny room. We couldn't actually listen to the call. We could only see transcript of what was happening on the call. So we were both there, like, glued to the big screen in a meeting room, watching this transcript painfully, slowly appear on the screen. And yeah, I think in the first call, like the hotelier took it way out of context, started asking for some information that we didn't include in the prompt. Kill it. Stop calling.
Yeah, and I remember it was super verbose, like talking, giving a lot, repeating things, repeating the guest name multiple times. Oh, do you have the reservation for Gabriel Stock? Yes. Okay, so this is a reservation from Gabriel Stock, repeating multiple times, and it was a bit painful until we were able to tweak it.
Yeah, it was very much a Karen as well at the beginning because our prompt for the agent was very basic. It didn't have any like off-ramp. So it was focus on complete its mission at all costs or like never hang up. The person will be saying, I cannot charge the credit card. I don't have it. It was like, please, can you charge the credit card right now? Can I speak to a manager if you cannot do it?
That was funny. Speak with your manager.
Something that Steven was mentioned about, worry about the voice. People are going to talk with AI or not. I remember that we had a case which some hotel just pick it up the phone and say, after a few bits of conversation, okay, are you an AI? And the AI agent say, okay, yes, I am an AI. Cool. I actually prefer to talk with an AI. So it was a very unexpected conversation.
It's amazing the person at the hotel even thought to ask for that.
Yeah, and actually he said that he preferred that it be an AI. I don't know why exactly, but he preferred that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was funny because he asked if it will remember the call, and I said, "Oh no, I won't remember the call. It's gonna be a new instance every time I call you."
Okay, so I really love this. I love that, first of all, you started with a make prototype. Let's talk a little bit about that. So I'm assuming, you mentioned 11 Labs. Are you using 11 Labs as your voice provider today?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment? Okay. But at the time, in this early prototype, was it just make with 11 Labs?
Yeah, it was like we tested 11 Labs for the voices, but then like we connected with Twilio because it was our current provider to make the calls. So yeah, it was a mix of things.
Okay, let me just zoom out for a second. It sounds like you identified this customer problem. Is it fair to say your goal was to try to use AI to do what your customer care team is doing? You're trying to get them to do the phone calls to proactively get the hotel to charge the credit card?
Yeah, so that was our kind of version 1 goal, was to do what the customer care team are doing with AI without damaging the success rate of what they managed to achieve with getting the hotels to do it. And then our kind of future vision was, okay, can we actually improve the success rate? Now we're using AI.
Okay, so to start off, it's just, let's save our poor customer care team from doing all these phone calls. And then with time, can we even improve the success rate so that customers, end users, are not affected by this devastating sort of error that can happen?
I think also for us was good for also to validate if this would be a good solution, not only for this specific scenario, but if you can rely on the same solution for different problems across, if we face another problem that we could use a voice, for example. So it was also beneficial for that sense.
Okay, so let's talk through this make prototype. I want to almost visualize like the flow diagram and make. What were some of the steps involved to be able to make that first phone call? I know you mentioned Twilio. I know you mentioned 11 Labs. Maybe can you describe just what that workflow looked like?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges we had is we didn't want to, so we need to extract the information from the hotels that we needed to call. And we didn't want to start touching our backend because if we started to touch that, it was going to take longer. So we found it easier to connect to our Zendesk instance where we have the tickets that tell the customer care agent which hotel they needed to call. And those tickets had all the information that we needed, like the phone number, the hotel, guest name, not the credit card number, like just the last 4 digits. So we saw that, okay, if we can easily connect to Zendesk, extract all that information and start like running the prompt and making the calls. And I think that was the biggest impact because it didn't involve really any engineering work because we didn't touch any line of code to make it work, to prototype it.
So you could add like a make step that integrated with Zendesk or...
Right, exactly.
Okay.
It was like, it operated like with make, we kind of created like I'm not going to say an AI agent because it's more, I'm not a big fan of saying, oh, we put AI on it. It was mainly a workflow of some deterministic steps with AI where it was needed. And that was good because it basically did the whole action that an agent will do, pick up a ticket, understand where to call. We even added some regular expressions to extract the information that we needed from the ticket, like the phone number, the guest name, the credit card numbers, and then dispatch these calls and wait for the result. So all that we were able to make that workflow in Make, which had the benefit that we hadn't needed to deploy any code to our platform itself. It was working completely external to our platform, doing exactly the same work that a human was doing, right?
Yeah, okay. So I love that you had engineers involved in this step, but you really relied on these workflow tools because it was a faster, easier prototype. So I can imagine, I'm assuming like the trigger in make was a Sendesk email. You're starting to parse it for the phone number and the customer name and things like that. You're using Twilio to make the phone call.
Yeah.
Tell me, this is the first voice product that I've had on the podcast. And I think what's interesting about your use case is it's a real-time conversation. So tell me a little bit about what did the steps for the conversation look like?
So yeah, we turned out first fully agentic. Okay, this is your mission. One prompt with some guidelines. Go ahead and bring the result for us, right? Even in our internal tests, we found it worked sometimes, but it was not succeeding most of the time. So let's say the accuracy of the success was not that great. So on everything, when we let AI run by itself, we always try like this, let's see what happens, it can handle or not. And it didn't work in the level that you're expecting. So what we did, okay, let's grab some control, right? So we started putting more structure. So the thing that we did, we separate the call in different moments. And for example, the first one is the IVR. So if there is an IVR, you should handle that. Otherwise, you move to the next one. In our scenario, the next one would be booking confirmation. So we need to be sure that we are talking about the same booking, right, with the hotel. And if you are able to confirm this data, move to the payment handling. Okay. So the VCC is there, the number is correct, and I need you to charge the VCC now, right? If everything goes well, it ends the call. And we made that in a way that also the AI, when it's moving through the different stages, so it still keeps the context, because it needs to be aware about what happened. Otherwise, any different conversation, it would make AI this is not, I don't know about this, but we talked about. So with this structure and stage moments, the performance increased a lot. Was way more reliable. And if I remember correctly, because we were iterating in the make scenario, I think I remember to look at Gab and say, it's working well. Why not move to production from there? I mean, it's working, right? So let's go production. And I remember that we start doing a rollout, grabbing some tickets from CC agents, from humans, to pass through the call. And we were listening to all the calls and making sure that things were correct classified and things are going well.
Yeah, I think the key thing was breaking this flow down, right? Listening to the calls, understanding the key moments of each call, and then giving a smaller agent to each part of those moments rather than.
Yeah, I want to get into this, but I want to start with where you were, your original make prototype. It sounds like the conversation on the phone was one prompt. And I'm a little naive about voice products, so humor my questions here. Is it as simple as I know I could give a text-based LLM a prompt about your job is to react to this conversation and your goal is X? Is that how it works with voice as well? You're just guiding it and telling it to have a conversation, and then it's all getting passed through a voice API?
It's pretty much like that. There's a text-to-voice markdown language that I did not know existed before this. But yeah, pretty much it's like that. And we faced the same problems with LLM, just in a voice. Some of the problems that we found before we knew about the text-to-voice markdown language was, for example, a booking reference number could be 7 digits long number, and it will describe this on the phone to a host. Can I take the booking reference? Yeah, it's 8,747,326,423. The hotel reception is like, what is this talking about? So yeah, we had to learn a lot of these early calls of kind of this text-to-speech markdown and putting spacing in between letters and numbers. And I think as English speakers say O instead of 0 many times.
Yeah, okay. I love this. Okay. So even just the way it would say numbers was challenging. It's funny, I've played with voice a little bit. I have an 11 Labs voice clone that narrates my blog posts. And it is really funny to see the things that the cadence is wrong or the pronunciation is wrong. And I've been writing a lot about AI, and that's one of the things that I'll always say, AI. And it's like such a long, awkward pause. I'm like, it's so obvious. And I'm upfront about it. I always say this article is being narrated by Teresa's voice clone. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's me. And I had a funny one just yesterday. I'm writing an article about Claude Code safety. And it read the article as like, how to use Claude Code safely. I'm like, why did you parse the sentence that way? That doesn't make any sense at all. Okay, so imagine you had a lot of these sort of fun, like you're listening to phone calls and you're like, what are you doing? So there was a little bit of a learning curve around text to speech. Had any of you done any of this before? Had you worked with text to speech before? Was this all brand new?
All brand new. Yep.
Yeah.
New.
And so did you just learn through trial and error and experimenting? Tell me a little bit about that learning process.
For me, it was also a bit of similar to prompting. Prompting was new for me, like asking something and expect to get some response.
Yeah.
And we all learned now how to iterate and say, oh, if I put this and tell it not to answer like very verbose, it will shorten the answer, or not to hallucinate. There's people that put it in caps when you want to avoid something and expect like the AI will listen. I think it's a similar learning, right? Like prompting.
Okay. So just a lot of trial and error, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, even with the prompting, we went through a lot of trial and error. For example, in one of our prompt versions, we did the classic thing of saying, like giving it a role at the beginning, like you are an experienced travel agent. And for some reason, this version of the prompt gave it way too much power. It really thought it was an experienced travel agent who could change bookings and cancel them, whatever it wanted to do.
At the end, I think like the most tricky part is making sure that you don't make a huge goal to the agent, like you very narrow what they need to do, because what it's doing is the output of an LLM, like the next most probable token, I guess. It's like the most technical.
This is a theme that has arisen on this podcast almost every episode, is this idea of like, how do you narrow the scope that the LLM is responsible for? Because that's really how we're going to control quality. So it sounds like in that make prototype, even at the prototype level, you went from one prompt to starting to break it up and to think about how do we give different prompts for different parts of the conversation? How do we give some structure to the conversation? So you're guiding the LLM as it goes through the conversation. Tell me a little bit about those iterations on that prompt and dividing it up into other prompts.
We looked for reasons where it failed.
Okay.
So we had, in the make scenario, we would receive a transcript of final call. And of course, to know if we are being successful or not, we cannot listen to every single call forever.
Yeah.
So we need a way to classify this. So we determined some kind of success criteria with our accommodations team of what will hotels usually say. So we had these three kind of success criteria of they will charge it for us now on the call, they will charge it when the guest arrive or when the guest checks out. Those were the main three ones. And then we, from listening to the calls, identify a bunch of failure scenarios as well. So that could be anything from it just randomly hung up, the person didn't understand what it was saying, it didn't pass through the IVR, which is the press 1 to contact the front desk. And so we would listen for these kind of failure scenario and then determine if that was an area that we really needed to focus a specific prompt on. That's why we have one on IVR specifically, like an agent that's only job is to get past the IVR of the hotel.
Okay.
I think we learned a lot, not only about the possible scenarios, but also about the failures that Steven has mentioned when we were listening to all the calls. With this huge spreadsheet that we had, we were, as a team, everyone listening to the calls one by one and adding comments about what the reason of the failure here. Oh, this one was in success, why it went success. No, so we were pinpointing all the errors And also that gives a lot of knowledge to actually build something later on in a more structured, more, okay, we know that needs to go in that way. So that gives us some confidence to us to move to this improvement, this iteration in the prompt.
Yeah, and was this happening even when you were still in a make prototype? Or was this after you went into production?
Yeah, we actually released it to production with Make because like we wanted to do it fast. Yeah, I would say Make this prototype actually become the product.
Yeah.
At some point, we are migrating most of it to our infrastructure now.
Yeah.
But we launched it to production with this. It wasn't like in a prototype stage at that point. Like we make it like nicer and we started to handle errors, etc. there. So it became like a nice workflow. But it allowed us to scale fast, like start with a couple. The nice thing is we could control, given that it was reading from Zendesk tickets, we could easily control, okay, how many tickets we were reading at the same time and launching. Yeah. And as Philippe said, we had this spreadsheet. We were with Google spreadsheet where we save everything and we can go there and mark like with a check mark, okay, was good, was bad, etc. And listen to everything.
Yeah, this is great. So it sounds like from the very early days, you were tracking traces, doing some error analysis, looking at clear measures of success, and using that to iterate on quality, which makes sense as you're dealing with a live person on the other end of the phone call. I can imagine why getting that right was so critical. Tell me a little bit about the evolution. So we've talked about it a little bit. You had to break like a single prompt into lots of different prompts based on like the structure of the phone call, getting through the IVR. Were there other sort of milestones you were able to identify in the phone call that you could use to break up the complexity of the task?
I think the biggest step was when Philippe introduced the evals to the whole process.
Yeah.
Because that gave us more confidence on, maybe Philippe, you're there to explain this, like this, your expertise on it.
Yeah, we got to a point which we were pretty happy with most of the calls. So I think after we structured the prompt, it was a huge jump. Most of the calls that we were listening, they were like pretty much straightforward focus, like confirming the booking, handling the payment, and ending the call properly. We tried to make it a small change to make it better, but that was not the big issue. So we started to, we need to look more into things. We did that type of eval that is actually running on every call. So we actually have two different evals. One to actually make sure that we have a good accuracy in the classification, because every time that the call finishes, we need to actually know what is the result, why it's a success or failure for us. And we use the transcript for that. And we have the classification on our side. We're using LLM to actually classify that. But we want to know if this classification is good or bad. So this first spreadsheet that we were classifying, it became our first data set, our source of truth, which we are running the classification. So now we have, even when we started in Make, I had duplicated that in the code just to make sure that we have something, some anchor to make sure that our changes, our iterations in the prompt, they could have a North Star, right? Okay, you're doing good or bad when change, at least to build some confidence. So we built that for support the classification, but we were lacking, but as you mentioned, we are speaking with human and we don't want to generate frustration or hoping to be rude or not be polite somehow. So then we build a different eval that runs for every call. And we use the transcript as well to identify if he's being polite, if he's improperly introducing himself, if he's not repeating a lot. Like sometimes he gets in the loop, repeating the same, which is annoying for a call. If it finishes the call abruptly without in the middle of the call, it can happen, right? So we have some measures, some metrics that we can actually follow every day, how the calls are going. So we even we did some small changes in the prompt and we realized that it started to repeat more and spot that in the metric and we roll back that in the prompt. Yeah, so basically we are using this data to actually find some opportunities. And right now I would say the biggest challenge that we want to get this extra milestone of success is actually passing through IVR, which is now the big challenge.
Yeah. Okay, so much I want to dig into here. So the first eval around like success was the call successful or not. Is that an ML classifier or is that a LLM is judge eval?
No, it's a classifier.
Okay.
We are using the data set, so we know the answer about, for this transcript, the result should be this. So for this data set, we are using LLM is just checking if the result is if the process is checking if the LLM is outputting the correct classification that we expect for the transcript. But this is actually in that data set. So we are not running that on all the calls, of course, because we don't know the answer before.
Yeah.
But for the behavioral one, you're using LLM as a judge. So LLM is going to look to the transcript and it's going to judge and give a score. So for every axis of politeness, frustrations, you're going to give a score about, okay, this is it. It's going good or bad. Can I give some examples how it should be the score? And when if we follow this data, basically to have not only about the classification, but also if he's doing good when handling with a real person, which it should.
We also had to iterate on our evaluation or classification evaluation as well, because our initial version was extremely strict. Like only if the hotel says this exact words, like I am going to charge the card for you now. Okay, this is a success. Anything else is a failure. Because as well, what we didn't want is false positives. Because then we'll again be leaving guests with unpaid hotels. So it was extremely strict at the beginning. We had to iterate down and understand more natural language. Many people are saying, yeah, I'm on that for you. Don't worry about it. Like, to us, a human mean yes.
We learned in a lot of cases where, for example, like if they tell us they will charge on check-in, that's a success for us. But if the check-in was tomorrow, sometimes the hotel said, oh yeah, we'll charge it tomorrow. And it was strict. So it didn't pick up that charging it tomorrow was charged at check-in. So it considered like a failure, but it was actually like a success. So listening the calls, we had to iterate on, okay, how strict it will be, how to take those nuances that a human will understand, but the LLM will get.
I think this is why I'm surprised it was a classifier and not an LLM step. Did you experiment with an LLM as judge for this eval? Because it seems like an LLM could determine.
Oh, yeah. No, sorry. I think like we use an LLM to classify. We don't have a machine learning model, like old school model to classify things. We still use like a LLM to get the classification of the result.
I see. Okay, so an LLM is evaluating the transcript and applying the classification score, but it's a classifier in the sense of is succeeded or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. I got you. I was going to say, this seems like a really hard ML classifier to make with all these sort of semantic variations.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about, I know one of the challenges with evals is to drift over time. Is there anything that you're doing like on an ongoing basis to make sure your evals are doing what you think they're doing?
I have something actually in my Teresa Torres opportunity solution tree that is still waiting there that I haven't yet given to Philipe. But I think we really moved this into production, like in a big scale production. I'm not sure how long ago, but in Q3, right? In the beginning of Q3 or a few months ago. So no, we didn't have that much drift yet and ongoing.
Okay. And then I can imagine with voice, one of the biggest challenges is latency. So tell me a little bit about what you have had to do there. And did it just work? Did you have to iterate to get it faster? Did you have to play with different models and faster models? Tell me a little bit about what that looks like.
I think, no, to be honest, we haven't found, except like small cases, we haven't found big problems with latency. Yeah, because as I say, things changed so much like these 2 years that, everything is fast now. So, we haven't found that problem.
fast enough for real-time conversation. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
fun to see how fast this technology evolves and just how much we can do with it.
Yeah.
Okay, there was another thing I wanted to ask about. Okay, so it sounds like your evals, you're running on a data set. So you have a data set with ground truth where anytime you make a change, you're testing that change against that data set. Are you doing any like production sampling? How are you curating that data set? Does it evolve with time, or are you still moving into that?
We are still evolving because it needs to.
Yeah.
Every time I find some samples that are not covered by the data set, we need to move things there.
Yeah.
The data that we create in production, we basically try to follow the behavioral one, for example, which is try to tackle like more or less how the AI agent is doing. And also we follow the success metric, right? So if every time that something goes off chart, we try to check out, okay, what happens? We try to check the subset sample of calls in that scenario. And I think also we also check other metrics now, like we see if the contact ratio increase, for example, and you have a lot of different metrics that could pinpoint if something is like going bad.
I think your latest version of the eval was quite interesting as well. So we had this kind of singular classification going on, like what happened during this call? Did it not get charged for it was speaking too fast, or because the call just randomly dropped in the middle of the conversation? But it could be both of those things, right?
Yeah. The first version that we did to classify the result of the call, we did just have one reason. Okay, just give me one reason about what went wrong, and we have some reasons for success. But then we realized, and actually when we were looking to the evolve in our data set, we were checking the failures there, and we discovered that actually the LLM was classifying correct for two different reasons, two different failures. And then I was confused. Yeah, it's this one, but also it's this one. There's two different reasons can happen in the same call. And then we are starting a new version that is actually splitting the charging intention from the reason of the call. So we have a lot of different reasons. For example, okay, it was stuck in the IVR, yes or no? I don't know, the hotel said that it's not going to charge the VCC. It's just a bunch of flags that can happen at the same time. But we still have the charging intention in the end, because you could have success in some of those reasons. We can have a failure, but with multiple reasons. This is also something that could make our data more rich to understand, okay, multiple reasons. The set of reasons actually they're making we failure more. So we have something to work with. So we are working this version 2 of the classification. And we are trying to make it like as good as the classification as the V1, running the evaluation that we have. Again, so we have the same base ground.
Yeah, one of the things I really love about the way you're talking about this is it sounds like you're very in the data. You're looking at what's happening with calls. You're detecting errors. When you detect errors, you're looking at traces for what is going wrong. Philipe, do you have an ML background? Did you have this experience from working on like machine learning classifiers beforehand? Or how did you learn this?
I would say in practice, actually.
Okay.
As I mentioned, I've been working for almost 2 years, basically experimenting, like prompting. I did some stuff like editing code before. I tried to fix some issues in our code base, and I was able to put some pull requests merged by AI. Yeah. It was nice. And that gives a lot of experience, like when I need to have more control, when I don't need to have less, when I need to have less control. Context is super important for the AI. I suffered a lot at the beginning because doing a lot of chains, okay, it was better. It's better now in the problem that I was having, but the other ones, should I test everything again? And I started thinking, okay, I need something to actually help support me, like during the chains. So then at the time, I think it was not even mentioned about evaluations. I don't remember. I know that I started like doing something that was like testing things for me based on some assumptions. So all the experience is basically that, trying and suffering. The pain.
Trial and you know what's funny though is that a lot of people do trial and error, but they're not very rigorous or scientific about that trial and error. And it sounds like a lot of your trial and error was really driven through this very scientific mindset iteration, look at the data, identify errors, see if we can figure out how to measure those errors, then try to reduce those errors. And this is actually what drew me into AI products. Like I started building my first AI product. I started to wonder, how do I know if it's any good? That pulled me into this world of evals. I got really lucky and I landed on Shreya Shankar's and Hamil Hussein's eval class, like in the first week that I was asking this question, was taught a really rigorous process for how to do this. And I realized, like, at my core, I think I just am a data scientist. And that's what drew me to discovery in the first place. And I think AI products is starting to bring that out in all of us. For those of us that like have this mindset of digging in and what's happening here, you have to have that curiosity to be able to use LLMs well. Is that what you're finding?
I think so. And definitely with this team, like it's a small team, we will sit down together on a daily basis. And especially when we were doing 1 call a day or 5 calls a day or 10 calls a day, where we were still listening to every single one manually. Every single day, okay, this is the list of things that went wrong. Then as we increased the scale, we had a Slack channel with every call that was triggered with a quick review of the outcome. And then the next day we will get together and how many were successful yesterday? Okay, let's look at the ones that failed. And now we are at a much bigger scale, making in the tens of thousands of calls every single week. But we still get together almost every day and we like, let's check this data. Okay, these are the 5 that went wrong. And all the team is involved, from the engineer, PM.
That's something we learned with data, and it's a bit related with latency, the question that you asked before. When we launched it in Germany, we use German, the language, but we left the prompt in English. And we noticed that the data wasn't like what we expected. And then we realized like that changing the prompt to German, and we got help from one of our data engineer that's the German, changing the prompt make us like get better results. I guess like under the hood, the LLM was translating English to German back to English. And that message changed. And it didn't got the expressions right also, right? Things like that are things that we learned, that having the prompt in the native language that you want to get the output, it's something improves the results.
I think also important to mention that the evals are super helpful. The ground truth are the best ones because best through a human. So you know that you can trust. What's the judge? It's the metric. But none of those replace like you checking a bunch of calls, for example, after you do a change. I think it's always helpful to do it because you have all those non-deterministic checks, but they're not, it's natural language. You cannot cover, even with a huge data set, you cannot cover all the cases. So listening, it's still we need to do it. But at least we are a lot more confident when you're deploying your chains, and we have something to work, even to iterate fast, right? When you're doing changes in the prompt, you run our eval, we check the results. Okay, better. No, roll back, change, and can work fast even when trying to improve the prompts. So, yeah.
Amazing. I often talk about evals now as the next discovery habit for exactly that reason. It's our fast feedback loop, right? How do we know that the changes we're making are working, which is great. I want to go back to something that Steve said and then also Gabby said. So Steve, you mentioned that today your AI product is now making thousands of phone calls. And Gabby, you said in multiple languages. So let's zoom out. Tell me a little bit about what is the state of this AI product today?
So now we make more than 10,000 calls every week with this AI product in, I think, only 2 languages now, right?
2 languages, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were doing it in the US and Canada was the first market that we released in. And then we did the UK because it's in English and it's easier. And then we did Germany, which is a huge market for us, and trying in Germany. Then we were at a bit of a crossroads of deciding at some point, should we try to iterate on the prompt and all of this to improve our success or expand into more markets? And at the moment, we're on a bit of a success iteration, but I think we have Spanish coming up in the roadmap.
Have you matched the success of your customer care team?
I would say that we are doing a bit better, and not because the AI is better than them. I would be very, I need to answer it very politically, but we can make so many more calls, right? Our customer care team was overwhelmed. They would be leaving behind hundreds of calls that they should make every day. We don't have a customer care team that can do this on a huge scale in Germany or Spain or Sweden and France. How much we can scale this? So globally, our North Star metric, even though we have all of this kind of, what's it called, successful or not, and all of these kind of metric, our North Star metric was always how many customers have a problem when they try to check into a hotel. And we have reduced that since.
Amazing. I was worried when I asked you that question that I was putting you on the hot seat a little bit because maybe you weren't there yet, but I'm thrilled to hear that you are making thousands of calls in a week. You're seeing success rate in your calls, and most importantly, you're seeing these error cases that affect your end users coming down. That's got to feel really great in just a couple of years in.
Yeah, it's amazing because I still remember Gabby's first adding a breakfast to hotel bookings prototypes that he sent. We were like waiting 5 minutes for a thing to respond.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Go ahead.
I think like an extra outcome of this is like we have more data of what's happening on those calls now, because now we can classify a lot of things that, for example, the hotel says that they didn't receive the VCC or they don't accept virtual credit cards. So this solution allows us to uncover a lot of other issues in the process that we didn't know about because we didn't ask the customer agents to classify the what happened with that call, and we can do that now. So we have a list of other problems that we need to solve in the future for this whole process.
This is a great segue to what I was going to ask you. You alluded to this a little bit with more languages and improving your success metrics, but tell me a little bit about what's next for this product.
So I think what is next is definitely more languages, because we're a European company, so we have countless different languages that we can go through. And I think we also found like product market fit with the AI calling. So we have many improvements we can make to this specific use case. We have a whole list of improvements of getting through the IVR more successfully or being better in different languages. But as soon as we release this, we have a release update Slack channel. I think on the same day that we released this, we were doing about like 500 calls a week or something like this when we first announced it. And immediately my Slack just got filled up with people from all around the company like, hey, we have this other problem where half the team is just calling to this place all day. So I think, going into next year, we have loads more different use cases outside of calling hotels to get them to charge credit cards.
That's such a great success metric of when more teams want you to take on their call load, you're doing something right. Excellent. This has been amazing. Thank you, all three of you. It's been really fun to learn about your product, and I'm really impressed with just how much progress you made in such a short period of time.
I am too. So kudos to Gabby and Philippe there.
We're four here present.
It was a great team effort. It was a fun project.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe in your favorite podcast app and give us a rating as it helps others find the show. Thanks. I appreciate it.